All right, welcome back to another edition of the Franklin Community High School Career Exploration Project. And I am joined today by Michael Clark, who is the owner of BAM LLC. Is that, I believe, correct? And they do organic weather forecasts. And I guess, Michael, why don't you just go ahead and say, kind of tell everyone what you guys do and how you kind of got involved in this?
Yeah, so we are, we're basically a consulting company. Basically, what we do is we take our skill set, our information, our knowledge, and we help organizations and businesses make decisions based on that information. Based on better weather forecasts, essentially. So if you got a guy that's laying a bunch of concrete or sealing pavement, or you have a baseball team that's the Cincinnati Reds or the Pittsburgh Pirates or whoever the case may be, they need to know when it's going to rain, when it's going to stop, when it's going to start, all that stuff. Um, Anybody that is highly dependent on weather, I mean, you have to think, um, you know, for an instance, we have a contractor who they do blacktop pavement. We had a call a few weeks ago where, hey, this is $180,000 job and it can't sprinkle. There can be nothing. Do you think that we can go and do this? And we have to basically give our opinion on, hey, here's what we would do, and it's either going to save, if the customer were to get rained on, he's out $180,000.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very significant decisions that go into, we're basically a high cost decision support is the best way to sum that up.
Now, I mean, you've got big clients and you kind of you how does one get involved in this, I guess? Like, what kind of training did you have? Did you grow up a fan of weather, and it's something that's been fascinating to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so for me, it's base knowledge of the atmosphere and how to forecast weather. Obviously, is preferred. I mean, if it's an instance where you know you know basic stuff. I mean, if it's a passion of yours, it's something you're already going to know. You have to think about when people love something, they do it whether they get paid or not. And most of the time, when you love something, you put forth a lot of effort into it because you love to do it. So, you know, to get involved in this, yeah, college helps. College training or education on forecasting weather and understanding computer models, it's not required. You can. A lot of what I do and what I know now is 100% self-taught. I mean, I learned some basic stuff, very basic 101 type stuff, as I took some online classes, and I eventually stopped. I stopped taking them because I was kind of sharpening my tools on my own and becoming more effective. So, you know, you if it's something you're passionate about and you really love it, you can get into basically any industry you want. Really, it's a matter of how much you want it. You know.
Now, when you talk about how much you want it, um, what are you referring to? I mean, because people see a business like yours, very successful business that you've kind of built, but you built it from the ground up. I mean, this isn't something where you had a lot of capital to put into it. With your company, you and your partners are kind of self-made. And so talk about a little bit about what that entails. I mean, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's really having a driving factor, that something that motivates you, something that's bigger than you are in terms of your vision or your dreams or your goals. I guess it sounds cliche, but when you start out doing something like this, you're gonna have to understand that um, it's gonna really stink the first couple of years. You're not gonna make any money. Any money that you do make is gonna have to go back into the business, um, and a lot of sacrifices have to be made. When people are out having a good time and hanging out on the weekends, or they're getting off work at 3 or 4 o'clock. I mean, for an entrepreneur or someone that owns a business, you're never really done working. You've always got people that are you've got to take care of. You're responsible for your income, so it's a 24/7 around the clock type thing. And then when you start throwing people into the mix, where you've got to make payroll and you got to make sure those people are eating, there's a whole other side of that requires a level of commitment and sacrifice that most people don't have. Most people just don't have it, and it's one of those things where it sounds really cool and it looks really cool, but it's really, really hard. But if you can do it and you can get to the point where it starts to become, uh, profitable and successful, it's a very special life. And you get a lot of things that, you probably never would have thought you could have. But really it boils down to a major sacrifice, giving up freedoms and things in the short term so you can have it down the road.
Um, so you talked about some of those things like being inside at or being when people are out on the weekends and everything, and what are some of the other cons that you can think of, and maybe even just to your specific career, like the weather, and then also some of the pros, some of the things that you really do enjoy about it. Obviously,
Yeah, some of the
I'm sure the people are super logical though when you give a weather forecast like for free, and I'm sure people are super logical about it though if you miss. I'm sure that's probably one of the pros. It's just overall general logic from people using when you miss a forecast.
Not at all. So you have to keep this PG. You basically become a professional crap eater. You eat other people's crap, and you kind of have to, because you have to do whatever it is you can do to keep people happy, whether you agree or disagree or you can't stand it or whatever. You have to. Uh, you, a lot of times do things you don't want to do, and try and help people the way you don't want to help them, to keep the customer happy. And so one thing we have here is that we always want to have over the top customer service experiences, extreme customer service satisfaction, and people talking about how great of a service that we have. And they do. Our clients tell us every day how great our service is, and they tell people about it. But it's because we take a lot of crap from them. We have a lot of people that reach out way more than they should, and they abuse the system like you wouldn't believe. But we smile and nod, and we provide the service to them, and that's what it takes in order to do that. But it's a con. I mean, it's sometimes it's incredibly frustrating. Um, and then other times, we're in the business of consulting and giving professional opinions and trying to help people. We're not always going to be right. I mean, we're going to be right more than we are wrong, but there are times where we're going to miss it, and people are going to get upset about that. I've had people just flat out just go off on me and call me names, and tell me everything that I'm not, and you have to have thick skin because you're going to hear that. And the other thing too about entrepreneurship, or any small business really, startup, is the word no. You're going to have to get used to that word. You're going to hear no a lot, way more than you're ever going to hear the word yes, no matter how long you do it. It's 100 to 3. You're going to hear no 100 times. You're going to hear yes 3 times. And so you have to understand that not taking no personally is a very big deal. A lot of people hear this, they get discouraged, they take it personally, they take it home with them, and it affects their life drastically in all different areas. But you've got to understand it's just business, and you got to get used to some things like that are certainly the downfalls of being in business for yourself.
Yeah. Now, as far as personalities and personality traits for someone who is an entrepreneur, um, what kind of person is good as far as mentally, and then what kind of person maybe would struggle a little bit mentally?
That's a incredibly good question, and I'm going to actually pull up something, but all of our staff here has actually taken what's called the DISC assessment. I'm sure you may have heard of that.
I have not.
But the DISC, well, it's a personality test,
Okay.
and it basically categorizes your personality in four different categories: dominance, conscientiousness, influence, or steadiness. Um, so there's four categories. Someone who, if you're interested in the entrepreneurial space, most entrepreneurs, most people in that mindset are in the D category, in the dominance category, where they are direct, they're firm, they're strong-willed, they're forceful, and they're a results-oriented person. So it's somebody that's very assertive, very confident, very motivated, and doesn't really take crap from anybody, quite frankly. Uh, the opposite end of the spectrum is you wouldn't want to be even tempered or accommodating or patient. I have zero patience. Everybody that works with me knows that I have horrible patience. And I ask for things, I don't know how to get them, but I ask other people to do them for me, and I don't have any patience in waiting on it. But that's just my personality. I'm eager to get things done, and the opposite person may struggle in starting a business with that type of approach. Um, Being that's kind of the two opposite ends. The S and the D of this disc assessment will, I think, if you're in terms of the entrepreneurial mindset, you're going to want to be more in that dominance category as a person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, as far as your role as kind of the owner and the operator, and you talk about the disc assessment, about just meetings that you would have in general. This isn't something that you knew growing up. How did you get like the various activities? I guess that's probably not the great word to describe it, but the various like team building or anything. This is what we're going to do on Wednesdays to help ourselves get better. How did you come up with all of that? I'm sure it was all you.
Yeah, that's a
yourself,
great
though, right?
question. No, we first and foremost I think in any small business or entrepreneurial world, if you don't have a good team, you're really not going to do much. There's only so much one person can do. So, I try to hire people that are smarter than I am. I'm not good in grammar. I don't know how to do computer programming. I don't know how to make websites. I don't really know how to do most of what our company does. I mean, I know how to forecast the weather and I know how to sell our service. Those are my strong points. But in terms of coming up with things that help our team, it's all about getting involved with the right people. So I try to surround myself with people who have done it or know better, or I'm in a coaching group. I listen to weekly calls about what other companies do to help their self succeed. So I'm plugged in, if you will. I'm plugged into people who are doing it, who are very, very good, who are winning, and we kind of adapt those things here and put them into play. Most of my staff, when they started working here, um, had really no idea how to take a product and turn it around and sell it to somebody. Now every person on our staff sells. They sell our service. Everybody. It doesn't matter what you do, you sell. That's taken multiple years to teach people how to do that, to make them confident in doing that, and understanding that it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but the processes of getting up to that point essentially are being plugged in with other people who are smarter than you, and realizing that you're not the smartest person in the room. One of the biggest downfalls for anybody who's wanting to go in and start a business, become an entrepreneur, is having this mindset that you're the smartest person in the room, because instantly that's a serious problem, and you're just really not going to get very far. So you need to humble yourself in that regards to, listen to people that do it and that are very good at it, and take their methods and implement them. Um, we have hanging throughout our office all across here. We have our mission statement, our value systems, our culture. Yeah, it's very important that we, I'm sitting right here. That we have integrity, we have a will to win, that there's quality in our work, that we have teamwork, and we respect everybody that we work with. Um, and those are our core values. And people that don't live up to those, they don't work here. So we try to again, we try to take in everything we can and adopt what works best for us here as a company.
Mhm. Now, how would you, I guess, recommend someone who wants to become kind of an entrepreneur? How would you recommend they start preparing right now while they're in high school or still have that opportunity?
That's a great question. I mean, first and foremost, they need to find out what they love to do. That's the number one thing. You need to find out what you're willing to do for free for a few years before you start getting paid for it, because you won't get paid out of the gate. Some people do. Some people get really lucky and they start making money right away, and then whatever, and they hit the jackpot. That's probably a 0.5% of the population. Um, but you've got to find something you really, really love and uh, that you enjoy, because if you don't, you're going to quit. It's not going to, you're going to hate it and you're going to stop doing it. That's the first and foremost. You need to find what you're passionate about and go from there. Um, and, and, and secondly, I would say, you need to get into, you've got to learn how to sell. You've got to know how to sell yourself and your product. You've got to know how to create a relationship with people where they want to talk to you. They want to, they when you speak, they listen. And that's not something everybody's born with, but I do believe it can be taught to anyone. It's very important that you learn how to look somebody in the eye, shake their hand firmly, and talk about a product and how it can solve problems. Sales is essentially problem solving. Any good entrepreneur is going to know how to solve a problem, and that's where if you can learn that early on, it'll really help your ability to start a business and be successful. Um, and I would say the third thing. So we've got do what you love and learn how to sell. And I would say the third thing is really learn how to become a disciplined person.
Mhm.
Motivation is a lot of crap, honestly. Uh, you're not going to be motivated every day. Probably 4 out of the 5 days a week, you're not going to be motivated. You can listen to a motivational speech or an inspirational podcast, but it's more about discipline. It's more about even doing things when you don't want to do it. Showing up when even when you don't want to, you still have to do that. And it's very important you learn that at a young age, especially if you're wanting to be an entrepreneur. You can learn that by being an athlete, being in the weight room, um, being physically fit. There's multiple ways you can learn that. But my top three would definitely be, I mean, without even thinking about it, would be doing what you love, learning how to sell and becoming a disciplined person. If you can learn those three now, you set yourself up to be pretty successful once you get out of school.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to get you out of here on this one. Last question I have for you is, if you could give any general advice to high school students, maybe go back to Michael when he was in high school, or just in general, something that you wish you knew. Now, I don't go off and start giving yourself advice. I mean, I don't want to have a 20-minute, because if that was either of us, if it was me, it's like, go back and give Brian some advice. Be like, yeah, we're gonna be here for half an hour. So just general advice.
Man, I would be too. Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I would say, gosh, the best takeaway I would have is really start learning from someone that's doing doing well. Okay, what I mean by this is, um, success and money and doing good, accomplished things, you're going to find that that's somewhat of a more of a lonely path. All right. What I mean by that is even some family, you're going to have friends and family and people that will become jealous and they may not speak to you. And, you know, it's a very strange thing. I know it probably may not make sense right now. Oh, my parents, they would never do that. Well, yeah, they will. But understand that, you know, only take advice from people you would be willing to trade a space with. Okay. And that may sound very condescending, but if you are a person that wants to make 6 figures a year, you can't take advice from someone who makes 25,000 a year. It doesn't work that way. That person doesn't know how to do it. They've never done it. So listening to them doesn't make sense. Even if it is your mom or your dad or your sister or brother or whatever, listen to people who are doing what you want to do. And you have to become somewhat one track minded in order to do that. The quicker you can learn to take advice from people who are in better situations than you are, essentially humbling yourself once again, the more successful or the better off you're going to be quicker. Just because it's your dad doesn't mean he knows what you need. Okay. Yeah. He's your dad and you love him and that's great. But if you want results and you want to learn and you want to get after it, sometimes you got to make sure you're getting it from the right people. I didn't listen to a lot of the right people in my younger days. I listened to the wrong people. I had the wrong outlook on life. It wasn't right. It didn't work. I faced repossessions and firings and you know, basically rock bottom. So if you can avoid that, you're going to be off to a heck of a better start than I was, you know, getting out of school.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, you know, it's always the important to have a mentor, you know, and people you can pour into as well, which I'm sure you're doing. So once again, Michael, thank you so much for your time. Michael Clark at BAM Weather, located actually in Greenwood, but they have clients all over the United States, and I'm sure we'll look at to branch out internationally at some point as well.
We already are all around the world.
Perfect. All right.
So,
thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks, man.